Good morning, viewers, and welcome to today's edition of the Heart TV's Breakfast Show. And with us in the studio to analyze the newspapers, the headlines, and the issues confronting Nigerians and issues trending across various platforms today is public affairs analyst, Comrade Shini Ajayi. It's a pleasure to have you on Sahara TV.
It's always a pleasure.
Shini Ajayi, you've had across the newspapers poverty, the inflation rate has hit an 18-year all-time high of 24.04%. Let's get your assessment of that. Is that
First and foremost, that figure is questionable because what they did is to lump up all prices in their capture zone and then look at the variations and then get an average. When you put now to people buying food, you cannot say it's 24%. To folks who need to go on buses or public transport, you cannot say that's 24%. So we are looking at a far higher percentage as regards, what is necessary for a human being to survive on. So in that sector, the survival sector, it is far higher. You're talking about close to 80% or even more than that. So we should not so much trust that the figures that are being put forward. They may want to put it forward, 24% to try calm people down, but essentially there's a state of emergency for overwhelming majority of the population as we speak. As regards they not having the means to meet to survive. So you are seeing I don't know whether you people notice, more people work, as a means of subsidizing their transport costs right now, and more people go hungry these days than as a means of trying to survive. But essentially, that 24% is not realistic. It's not factual. It's more in the realm of 80 and above. So let's put the ball on the ground.
all this actually boils down from the removal of the fuel subsidy, and this has impacted Nigeria's economy and so far. You've highlighted some of the noticeable effects, and Nigerians are getting impacted because of this fuel subsidy removal, and yet there are still palpable fears in it.
It's necessary for us
going to be another fuel price.
Yeah, but it's necessary for us to get the lexicon right. Let's get our terminologies right. First and foremost, when dealing with a big lie, about subsidy, it's necessary to so that the public can be well educated. First, there's no subsidy on the Nigerian fuel. There has never been subsidy, on Nigerian fuel. There's a difference between taxing fuel and you actually having subsidizing fuel. So people have, bastardized the use of that terminology. Nigerian fuel, is just like saying you are subsidizing gari in Nigeria. If you are saying you are subsidizing fuel in Nigeria, it's a highly profitable sector. Last year alone, Nigeria made over 40 billion, US dollars from that sector, from petroleum. And then you put it by the side, how much did they use to import their fuel? The whole cost was placed at around 7 billion US dollars. So when you do the maths, you still see that, this is a country that can even afford to give people fuel for free, concretely speaking. But then that didn't happen. People still paid significantly for all the products that they have. So let's, from that point of view, first and foremost, you see that the question of subsidy is not what we are talking about here. What you are talking about here is taxing people, hiking prices. That's not subsidy. That's not subsidy, and that's why and then deregulating the entire thing, bringing in private sector. Why do you need to bring private sector into that arrangement? You bring a private sector, who will now come in to go and buy, the fuel, from abroad, source it, from abroad. But nobody talked about how they are going to get the forex, in order for the cycle to continue. So you now have this crisis of which, from what they buy, because absolutely, when you look at some things, there's no refinery globally that accepts naira. So people need to get some. There's no refinery. It's in dollars. Where do you get the dollars from? You get it from the from the commodity itself. It's crude, and Nigeria is not. We are using far less. The crude that is required to manage the economy is far less than the crude that is being sold. So you have this arrangement. It's quite a funny arrangement. So it's a profitable sector, but what is happening now, is in line with the dictates of the IMF and World Bank to actually get, the people more, impose more taxes on the people, and reduce, the purchasing power. That's essentially what is going on here. So that is the crisis we are actually facing right now. So when you put things in proper perspective, it's necessary for us to know, look, first and foremost, please let's put it aside. What you're having is hike in taxes, hike in price, not that anybody is subsidizing anybody.
Now, it's been suggested that President Tinubu's economic policy has lacked proper implementation strategies. Could you elaborate on any specific instances or areas where implementations have fallen short so far since the advent of this regime?
Well, it's not just President Tinubu's policy, because we put all the 4 participants, key participants, all of them had the same economic policy. All of them, had their manifesto. That is the Peter Obi, Atiku, Tinubu, and even Kwakwanso. These 4 elements, the parties actually have the same, manifesto. And the manifesto was guided by, the dictates of IMF and co, which says, all this funny stuff about subsidy, about privatization, the same thing about floating the naira and things like that. So, it's like, anyhow you cut a head of a goat and separate it, there's no way the goat is going to live. So that's essentially what you are seeing here. So it's not a matter of, this is the consequence of, you deregulating, because the regulation, they want to make it as if it's a fanciful word. It's not, it's anarchy. This is the consequence of anarchy, and hiking, prices, and having free flow, or free for all. This is the consequence. So there's no how you are going to do it, it's not going to actually be any better. How do you want to do it? Cut the whole head of a goat is going to give you this. You say you want to, quote and unquote, hike price of fuel. What is going to be the consequence? This is what you're going to get.
Now, in hindsight, what are some of the key factors that you feel contributed to the failure of this government's economic policy, and were there any unforeseen challenges that arose?
One of the problems that we have is that, in Nigeria, let's have a declaration that you don't have nationalist economists. Because what you have today is everybody repeating what is being said on Bloomberg or being said on, the days of the Professor Luku is over, where you could still see some elements having some nationalist orientation to say that no, you can't just be dictating all these so-called figures or lines of action, that we too need to have our own line of action. You don't have that anymore. And this generation are actually learning the tough way, seeing the realities of what the old generation saw, why they stood against all this, what some of us tag as mispolicies as dictated by the imperialists. And don't forget, all these policies do not actually originally emanate from here. They actually come from outside. Even the departing ambassador, commissioner, high commissioner, UK commissioner, when leaving, was saying, well, on air, was saying when the next government was what, withdraw subsidy, deregulate, merge, so-called merge floating the naira. Which some of us, there's nothing called floating. You want to deregulate. You want to devalue the currency. That's what you've done. And the way they have done it, crudely has undermined the economy, to those who profit from it, which is the multinationals, those holding the Nigerian foreign reserves and those controlling the the economy, you know, essentially, is profitable for them. For the economy as a whole, it's on a slide, downward slide, a ruthless, vicious downward slide. I don't know whether people understand that as we speak. You know, they say that the projected growth rate for Nigeria is supposed to be 3% GDP. The GDP, as we speak, as of last year, was about 499 billion US dollars. So if you are saying 3%, you know, you are not expecting nothing more than 500 or so billion US dollar, you know, in overall. But as we speak, all that figure is in the dustbin, because right now, you know, with the devaluation of the currency by close to 100%, everything is still in. They forget that everything is still in good. The calculation is done in naira, and then the conversion is done on the basis of the exchange rate. So when you do that right now, the GDP as we speak right now has crashed by more than 50%. So by the time the next figures for next year will come, for this year will come out, later, you will see that we are already in a deep recession as we speak. So the GDP is going to be around the tune of about 300 billion US dollars or so. So from the biggest economy in Africa to that's what this deregulation, devaluation and co. Do the mathematics. All the corporations that declared, you know, their end of the year results within the past, with the exception of a few from MTN, you know, or the multinationals. In fact, one of the multinationals has, you know, peak rate, that's Glasgow. But when you look at all their results, you know, all of them were declaring losses on forex terms. Because when you look with the calculation was before May 29 was 406 to 468 naira to a dollar. But as we speak, it is now, you know, in the realms of 781. So in the other, and this thing about, you see, we want to merge the black market, quote and parallel, the black market, and that we want to have one exchange rate is a lie. It's not possible. You know, that's why they call it parallel. Parallel lines don't meet. So the more you devalue the official exchange, the more the unofficial exchange goes high. So you are seeing that, and it's a never-ending decimal. Then you now add that, you know, people have to go and buy fuel, you know, import fuel. They should go to the same market. So it is that process is it's a chain reaction. If you know what is called a chain reaction, it is going to further depress the economy the more, and it will never work. That's the objective reality. So essentially, when you put all these things into, this is why we say that probably, you know, we should close the department of and the faculty of social sciences. You say this, because you don't have economists who could actually put all these things in a holistic, you know, model, and understand that what you are doing in this sector is going to damage the entire economy. That is the objective reality of what they are doing. The devaluation has smashed the GDP of the country. If it could degrade a Dangote, you know, until they did so, I don't know how they did it in their hopes to bring it back up, you know, in terms of ranking. The general economy, Nigerian economy, has been devalued on the basis of this wicked program.
You can actually join this conversation by calling in, because this program is actually live. The number to call is 0704 9941 413. That's the number to call, and if you're calling from outside of Nigeria, please add +234. Again, the number to call is right there on the screen: 0704 9941 413. Now, let's get back to Sheni. Sheni, I mean, looking at the broader context, how does this failure of this economic policy impact Nigeria's standing in the global economic landscape?
I've already emphasized one thing. Right now on the African continent, from being, you know, the biggest economy, you know, because essentially when they use the GDP to do the grading, the Nigerian economy right now is going to be number 3. You know, it's going to be below Algeria. It's going to be below except South Africa also does an insane devaluation of its currency by close to 100%. you know, you are not going to have that kind of crash. So there's a lot of production going on in Nigeria. You know, people, you know, I think MTN made about 170 billion. You know, to some people, this is supposed to be a huge amount. But when you put it in dollar terms, you know that when compared to the amount they made last year, that's why they declared it as a loss in forex. So it's gone down.
Now,
you know,
let
and
me
it's a chain reaction.